Hi viewers, welcome back to our podcast. My name is Jessy, and today we have a guest on show today. So she introduced herself in the previous episode. So if you have not watched, please go back, watch it. We're on YouTube at Maono Africa. Like, subscribe, share, itawatu, leave a comment, let us know what you want us to do for you people. Yeah. And we are going to continue with our chat with Wahu here. She's from AMKA Africa, and we were talking about what they do and how they are associated with Maono Africa. Yeah. So you are talking about the police and how they can come in, na hii story the children and the exploitation. So how do we make sure that even when we take these kids, when the legal framework has started, we take these kids to the police, how do we make sure they are also protected through the whole frameworks, through the legal section of police, even till they get justice?
Yeah, actually, employing a kid for domestic work is an offense.
Yeah.
Under the Employment Act. Now, when the child is rescued, mostly rescued by community workers, like I've explained in the previous show, and community workers, wazee wa makumi, police, chief, maybe sometimes children officers and all these people. The police are supposed to record the statement like any other offense or crime that is usually reported to the police, issue an OB, and investigate, arrest the perpetrator, and be able to produce the person, charge the person in court. But that is actually just the legal process. What we are having and what we want to discuss also, because we know part of what we're to our power is actually the police officers who are members of our society, are very important members of our society, and kudos to the good work they're doing, protecting vulnerable groups and all of us and keeping us safe. What we'd like to tell them, because what we have seen is that because as a society we have sort of normalized employing children.
True.
So we have normalized employing children. And so when we go to report a case to the police, the police officers are most of the time, we have had almost 20 cases, around 20 cases reported that we are dealing with right now.
Yeah.
But most of the cases which required police, we have had to intervene, send an advocate for the police to issue an OB number. Reason, the police says, hakuna kesi hapa. They don't see the problem, they don't see the case, maybe they also don't appreciate the issues, and that means there's a lot of work to be done to raise awareness and also sensitize, workshop for sensitization of these justice, criminal justice players, including the police. They don't see the offense, they don't see the problem. In fact, most of the time they'll say, so mtu wa miaka 16 ni mkubwa. Hapa sioni shida. They refuse to issue OB to the social workers. We almost all the cases we have had to have an advocate.
Yeah.
Go to the police station and accompany the social worker to actually have the police issue an OB, and then insist on them doing their work of investigating and arresting the person who has employed the child or abused the child. So the problem, some of them, when you take the case there, they ask, na alishikwa? No, referring to defilement.
Yeah.
Alishikwa? No. If there was no defilement, there is no problem. Like employing a child is not a problem.
Yeah.
We will be concerned if there was a defilement or there was other abuse. Things like a child being left in the house without food, and even sometimes some assault. They're not seeing it as a big deal. So that's a big problem that we have, and that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, and as this, the poor given of justice, cause most people not to come forward. Mtu anasema, the other case tuliona maybe kwa TV or through the social media, it was not worked on. What guarantee do I have mimi nikienda nitasaidika? Does this is this the main cause where you find that most people don't come out, the community doesn't speak?
Yes, you see, if the first person reports, the second person reports, and there is nothing that is done, the police says they don't issue even an OB, they refuse to issue an OB. and the social worker goes there, the police still refuse to issue an OB. Most people can't access an advocate.
Yeah.
It's not, getting a lawyer is an expensive business. And some of them may not even know about the existence of organizations which can help, like AMKA Africa and Maono.
Yeah.
So they are frustrated. They stop. So the next time that the same social worker gets to see such a case in the course of their work in the community, they will not go report because they know it doesn't work. So that's why it's important that we work together and be able to sensitize the police and other criminal justice actors so that we can have a seamless way of addressing this problem from the justice system.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. And another thing, like I saw from your page, and I was very interested in, like we see here in Nairobi, people are enlightened. Hata wale wajasoma, they know, like I can do this, I can maneuver this, I can get justice through this way. What do we do now that we are talking about children that are being like exploited? What about the marginalized communities like the Isiolos and the such counties? You find that it is not only now about these children being exploited, like working. Now they are being exploited in a form of FGM. Like how are they being helped?
Yes. The good thing with this country is that this country has so many organizations that do different things. So we have so many, because this is a lot of effort and a lot of resources, and also government is trying to put a lot of resources. We must give due where it is and criticize where it is due. Has been trying to do some work to stop vices, harmful cultural practices like FGM, early child marriages, all those ones. And most of these harmful cultural practices have made, even they have, because you see there's a relationship with these things.
Yeah.
There's a lot of relationship. There's a relationship with FGM, for instance. A child a girl goes through FGM in Samburu, gets married because if you've gone through the cut, you are a woman.
Yeah.
I know you stop going to school. According to many communities, you stop going to school.
Yeah.
You get a husband.
Yeah.
Now you are 13-year-old. Do you have the mental, physical, psychological capacity to run a house, to be a mother of someone, to be a wife of someone, to be a wife of another 18-year-old or 17? This is a children affair which can't work. Eventually, most of those marriages will break down at some point. Yeah. And what will that, after 2 children, after 1 children, after 3, 4, 5, because also of the being young, not being schooled properly and all this poverty, they also are not able to access services like contraceptives, so family planning becomes a problem. And this is a girl who is likely to have more children than the average woman who has gone to school. So eventually with 4 children, this person leaves that marriage. Yeah. How do they fed for those children? They will go to domestic work. If they live with 1 child, maybe at 14 because they got married at 13, they'll end up in domestic work at 17, 16. Are we together? Yes. So all these things are actually related in a way. If you don't protect these children, and even boys, who are getting this. So if this child does not go beyond school and they start working like here, because boys also are doing a lot of domestic work. We must not forget that boys also are doing domestic work. There are people nowadays who just want boys.
Yes, Shaba boys.
Yes, Shaba boys, because domestic work is not in the house just cooking and cleaning. Also, any work within the home compound is domestic work. The Shaba boys looking after cows and all that and all that. Yeah. They all end up in this work which is also exploiting. That's why I'm saying those boys, like when I was coming here, I found a lot of traffic here and there, small patches of traffic, cow traffic, cattle traffic, a lot of cattle on the road.
Yeah, there are many.
Yes. Nairobi actually has become a town of cattle.
Watu wataka kurudi mashambani kulima.
Hizo ng'ombe ni watoto wanazichunga. Small boys. These children should be in school.
True.
They should be in school instead of looking at the cars. So all these things. So like I said, we need as a society to rethink our way of doing things. We see, does it help? When we go to communities to talk about FGM, we go to these communities like the ones we've talked about, the far-flung communities which don't have the advantages which may be available in towns, in terms of training, many organizations and all that. You can't tell people, because that's not the way society works. You can't tell people, FGM is bad, stop. They will say, this is an old age tradition.
Yeah.
This is our way of life. And they have a right to say that because it's their culture. Is what you must show them the merits and demerits. Help them to go through the process of the pros and the cons for them to eventually end up with the balance. And they can see, honestly, the end product of this is trouble. Yeah. More poverty and more problems. So that's what we need to do. And I actually believe that's also most of the organizations are doing. There's so many organizations out there. We also work outside Nairobi. We are in Kajiado. We have doing things in Mombasa. We are in Busia. So doing things here and there, different ones. Because we are an access to justice organization, we are not confined to only one issue or one community. Yes.
Yeah, that's a very interesting factor. And now that we were talking about now the rescue, we find that we need places for these kids kupelekwa before like they get the actual help. Now let's say here in Dandora, like there are two children orphanage, like the big ones that we know. So you find that there are no many safe houses where you take these kids for them to like now be helped. You find that ukimtoa hapa, you've rescued this child. There's a period of time they have to stay in this safe house because like there are many kids coming. They cannot stay here forever before they are relocated to maybe children's home. What are the work like you as AMKA Africa are doing to push this? At least we have more safe houses for these kids. We have more enlightenment for these kids and more for them to be not only to result to them being taken to children's home, but at least to have a trace back to where they came from.
Yeah, actually most of the places, most of the houses where they're taken, they're not children's home as such. Children's home in the strict sense as we know children's home. They are called rescue houses or rescue places or rescue homes. It's just a place where the person who is rescued from work or from exploitative, maybe from sex work or whatever, domestic child work, they are taken for purposes of being, fighting bearing. Now, it's sometimes good to take, and actually that is usually the first option. It's never good to institutionalize a child, to put them in this kind of place. Yeah. Only in instances where the guardian or the parent is the one who put this child in the exploitation. So if it's the guardian or the child who put this child in this exploitative environment, if they return there, they will be returned. You see? Yeah. So you're not solving the problem. Yeah. So where it's possible to talk to the guardian and the parent and speak to them and be able to let them know the kind of dangers and exploitation that putting this child in this kind of work is putting them in, and they are able to learn. Because sometimes actually, and a number of these people actually, that's why even as we take these issues to police and prosecute, our interest is not to really punish people and prosecute people. Our interest is actually to make them learn, to stop them. Yeah. Just stop. It's not working. Most of the people are actually ignorant. There are those who are bad. They just want to employ children because they are cheaper. Yeah. They are cheaper, yeah. And you can exploit them without, you can really misuse them, abuse them. That's what they want. But there are others who just employ, who are just ignorant. So we just want to stop this. So if the guardian, the parent has put them there, but they're just ignorant, then you can educate this parent and they can be able to redirect this child, maybe like to what we are talking about, technical colleges which are there. Because most of the communities are ignoring these institutions, but these are things that are supposed to help us in the communities. True. I speak like this because I sit in boards of secondary schools within the communities I come from. And I know we are there as board members and we are always really worried and about parents, because parents are ignoring. Institutions are lying there, government has put resources, but no, people are not taking children. True. You find a place, let's say, we talk about like the dollar, but mostly in the rural areas, an institution here in Dodora has 2 children from Dodora, but has other children from other places. Because Dodora people have ignored it. Yeah. They are taking their children to work for domestic work in Nairobi instead of bringing. You get no. Yeah. Those are the things we really must stop. Yeah. So if the parent or the guardian can be spoken to and be able to be enlightened and they actually stop putting this child, that is possible. If they can't, then this child has to be able to be supported in a rescue house. Now, you have asked what we are doing. What we can do, see, there are policies which require county governments actually to have rescue houses for children who are in all these exploitative situations, not just domestic work, exploitative situations within the communities. They are supposed, county governments are actually supposed to set up some rescue houses. So our work is to ensure such policies are actually well put together and actually implemented. Because as a legal institution, it's work to ensure that policy laws are in place, policies are in place, and implementation is also working. Also seeing to it that when those rescue houses are put there, that they are well regulated, and children are not ending up in another exploitative environment. Yeah. Because this is so-called rescue houses or children homes can sometimes become also places of exploitation. Yeah. So that's what we have to be careful. But nevertheless, there are so many private rescue houses supported by development partners and NGOs and fathers. Even Freedom Fund is actually funding one of the rescue houses, but they are temporary. Yeah? So what we would say and we really want to push is that can we have government and other partners ensuring that in these rescue houses, we are not just removing children from exploitation and putting there to just stay. Doing what? These are children who should be developing their mind, working in an environment that is not exploitative. So, can we set up skill learning? Or can these rescue houses come up into partnerships with some of these like institutions, with technical institutions we are talking about, or many other, so that when you are rescued, you go into learning something that will be useful for you in life. You don't just end up idling and eventually turning back to the same work. So that's the kind of things, that discussions and conversations we are moving forward. Yes.
Now let me ask you this, because I've seen our government has the ability to cater for these kids. Let's take an instance where the time Obama was coming to Kenya, the streets were clean, houses were built for these kids. There were no kids in the streets were clean. So it shows the government has the ability to cater for these kids. Is it that they're just turning a blind eye? Is it just for a show?
You see, who is government? That's also another question. Who is government? Yes, we have the government we have elected, we have our president, Dr. William Samuel Ruto, and the vice president and the whole cabinet and all that. But also, and they have a responsibility. The Constitution says that it is the responsibility or the obligation of government to ensure that we all enjoy our human rights. But also, we also have a part to play as members of the community. First, by the kind of government we put in place. True. Do we ask them this question when you are elected? What questions or what issues did you present to MCA when you are voting MCA?
Well, you pay 50-50.
Okay. What questions did the community address to the MP? So you see, what questions and issues are we asking governors, and they are the ones to ensure that these rescue houses are put in place. You see, we have to do our part. Number two, once we put them in place, do we follow up? Do we put them in place to ensure that as communities, we are the ones who have given this job? But you see, like I see and I get really frustrated, us Kenyans, we have become very powerless. We just watch things and complain online, but we don't do a lot. We don't do a lot. So there is that. So in terms of resources, I can say we have resources to take care of these things. It's only that it's not a priority.
True.
Yes. It's not a priority. If government want to sponsor some big person's burial, they will spend 200 million, one person's burial. Yes. But 200 million can remove all the children and actually feed them from the streets and feed them for whole several months.
Yeah, and take them to school.
So it's also a priority. So it's also, the government need to be able to look at that, and we are the ones to push government to ensure that this can happen. But also as members of community, we must also ensure that we are doing our part in terms of also preventing. What small thing can we do in terms of ensuring that that is not happening? That happening, yes.
Now, what are the systems put in place to ensure awareness about this to the grassroots level? What are the because unajua, like not everybody has access to social media.
Yes.
Now, what do we do to create more awareness about this?
Yeah, so I can speak about what we are doing with Maono and Freedom Fund and other partners. We, in addition to what we are doing with social media, we want to go to FM radios. FM radios have a wide reach. Have a wide reach. Some of them are vernacular. Somehow, in this country, everybody listens to something.
True.
To something.
True.
Whatever the thing is, but they listen to
something.
So if we can get resources, are usually the problem. We can get resources to get to something that someone can listen to, that is will get there. The other thing is sensitizing and training the people, the leadership in the grassroots, social workers. These are the people, and there was one in Makumi, most of them are social workers. They're interacting with people at the grassroots level. So they speak to people. They are talking to people all the time. The chiefs, the assistant chiefs, these people are very important. I keep saying, as an advocate of over 13 years, if there is any person who is important in the access to justice cycle, is an assistant chief and chief. They solve so many cases, yet we don't put enough resources to train them and to prepare them for the kind of work they do. So when we see them doing things they should not, we start complaining, oh, they are corrupt, oh, they are doing what? Yes, they can. Some of them are corrupt actually. We have some of them who are corrupt who are even blocking cases of CTW, the ones we are doing, but most of them are struggling, handling very complex cases with zero knowledge or no knowledge at all. So they are putting just whatever thing they think it's the right thing, no conscious decision, decisions which are just about, guesswork, picky ponke, We believe
bora justice ifanyike either way.
The justice kulingana na vile mambo picky ponke. So we need to empower chiefs, assistant chiefs, wazee wa nyumba kumi, those volunteer children officers, all those ones. When we empower those ones, people will be empowered. Yes.
Now, let me ask you this. This time we find that now we are doing the empowerment. What do we do to ensure, like you find, some people do the empowerment probably, and people who are inside the whole thing, when you handle a case, it's a complex case. You find that these people, at some point, it gets so complex that their lives are threatened maybe, or they get in some sort of danger. How do you ensure like protection for these people?
Maybe a straight answer is there is no absolute protection. It does not exist.
So like it's up
but
to you.
But there's some things, yes, there's some things that we can do. First, anyone who is working in communities and anyone who is doing this kind of work must do the right thing. You cannot be doing this kind of work and doing the right thing and you also compromised. Because I also know, and I believe, because as a lawyer, and I've also interacted a lot, with as a lawyer, interacted a lot with the criminal justice. Even magistrates and judges, they sit to preside on very serious cases. Especially magistrates who don't even have no bodyguards. After work, they leave and go home alone. And you have just jailed people. And the case has been going on, people are out on bail. Robbery with violent suspects, out on bail, and they can tell from what you just read to them, you have a case to answer. Case to answer is they have to come and defend themselves. There is a probability of them being convicted and being jailed, and you just go home. And we see, this is a good country, it's not where we have most of them attacked for such, because they are doing their work, and when they do it justly, they are safe most of the time. Sometimes they are just people who are out of the normal curve of good people, whatever, who can harm people. So most of these community workers, when they do the work well, they are protected by their own integrity to some extent. The other mechanism, so they must remain people of integrity. Because if you are dealing with cases in the community, assistant chief, you are the chief, or the whoever, people come to you, and you take things, sometimes you are biased because you ate something or something, people will know. Whatever. So that's the same people who may want to harm you because they are pained. They are pained. They don't see justice. The other thing is, what we tell our social workers, if you are living in a community like this, where you work with social workers, community like this, and you realize, I'm a social worker, my neighbor has employed a child as a domestic worker. I do not want to put a lot of bad blood between me and my neighbor and destroy this relationship.
Yeah.
Because it's a network. No social worker works alone.
True.
Work with other social workers, not within the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So that you just tip them, so that the rescue and everything else will be done by others who are not immediately.
Next to them.
So the chief and because the chief, even if he's your neighbor, it's their job.
Yeah.
That is their job. They are supposed to keep law.
They are the authority.
Yes, the authority. The police, it's their job. So work with others. Don't be the front line, but make sure you do something about it. So they are protective mechanism, and actually most of these community workers, they actually know these things, and they're actually the ones who have informed us on most of these self-protection mechanisms. Yes.
Okay, now as AMKA Africa, there you find that in the maybe let's say like the rural or the places where the slums, there are these parents or maybe single parents. They don't want to put their child in a situation where they have to work, but they need help. What kind of help do you people offer as AMKA Africa to such kind of households like and the children?
Okay, to put the record straight, we don't provide livelihood support. We don't give money. We don't pay anyone. We provide services to ensure that people have access to justice. Yes. So everybody must go out there and work and organize their finances and ensure that. All that we can tell them is, if you say you are poor, you are putting your child to work because you are poor. To just emphasize on what I've been talking about a lot. Chances are that you put your 14-year-old to work because you are poor. At 16, you'll be a grandmother. You'll have 2 of them to feed. And clothe and all that. So poverty will have magnified itself. It will have come with its own children and its own grandchildren. Poverty will increase in that house. So being poor is something we understand is there. We all understand and have come from there, or some of us are poor. But it does it. So the question we must ask ourselves, is this a solution to this poverty? No, it's not a solution. But as AMKA Africa, we don't provide any. We don't have resources for that, and we don't provide that. There are other organizations which provide other livelihood supports, but we are not one of them. Yes.
Okay, I hope viewers mmelewa. AMKA Africa. Hatulipi school fees.
Hata mimi natafuta school fees ya mtoto wangu. Mtu akisikia mahali wanalipiwa ya watoto wangu, nitafurahia mno.
Okay guys, I hope you have learned something from that today. It's been a good show, and we are glad to have Wahu here. She calls herself Wahu, so tuko na Wahu wawili so far wenye tunajua.
It's my real name.
Yeah, it's her real name. Actually, it's her real name.
Yeah, some people sometimes think it's a stage name. I don't have a stage. Neither do I have a stage name. Yes.
Yeah. So it's been a wonderful conversation, and I hope like you as the viewers will help us to stabilize this situation where children are being exploited. Yeah, and if in case of anything, we have AMKA Africa, we have Maono Africa, which we are working together to ensure that everybody and every kid, their rights are being put in place. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a good time. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share. We want to create more awareness.
So as we conclude, I would really like to ask our viewers, what way to our power? Please, if you have employed a child, release them immediately. Stop putting that child in a situation where they are affected, their development, their health, their psychology is affected for the rest of their life. They should not be working in such an environment. Release them so that they can go back to school, they can go to technical college, they can do something else as they grow to become adults who are employable in such circumstances. If you know anyone who has employed a child, do something, report, talk to them, enlighten them. If you have a child you plan to put into employment, We have told you the dangers of putting a child into child domestic labor. You will expose them to abuse. They are likely to be beaten. They are likely to, because some of these employers actually, surprisingly, they beat a lot of children, sexually abused. They are likely to be put in a situation where they actually find themselves becoming children mothers. So you are likely to even have more problems than you had before you put that child in employment. Find other ways of supporting that child to be able to grow up and become a responsible adult. If you know a child is report, so make sure you do what you have to do. Just be a champion in whatever situation or place where you are. If you are a chief, if you are assistant chief, you are children officer, you are police officer, you have been placed there to ensure that you facilitate justice. Do your work honestly and diligently, transparently. Please assist us to be able to stop this vice and help our children to be in the right places where they can actually grow to become responsible adults. If you know how you can support this cause, reach out to us. Reach out to us. We are looking for support. We want all of us to join hands together and be able to stop child domestic work, exploitation, and abuse. Thank you very much.